even the cold can't stop these 10 hardy perennials from blooming. Hey there, my GreenSpace friends. Can you feel that crisp winter air? The kind that makes your breath visible and the garden seem frozen in time. Yet, if you look a little closer, life is still there. Hidden under the frost, color is waiting to bloom again. And today, I'm going to show you how. This video is for you, the dreamers who refuse to let winter win. Maybe you're someone who tends a tiny balcony garden, keeping a few pots alive through the cold. Or perhaps you have a backyard where every leaf tells a story. You might be a busy homeowner who only has Sunday mornings to dig your hands into the soil. Or a quiet plant lover who finds peace in watering houseplants by the window. Whoever you are, this is your season to rediscover what your garden can do, even when the world outside turns gray. Because in winter, the garden doesn't die. It transforms. And the secret lies in 10 incredible perennials that bloom against the odds, defying snow, frost, and freezing winds. So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's wander through nature's winter miracles together. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to GreenSpace Inspirations, where every season grows a little more beautiful. Part 1. The Secret Life of Winter Survivors. When most gardens fall silent beneath the weight of snow, something remarkable is happening just beneath the surface. Deep underground, the roots of winter perennials are very much alive, quietly breathing, storing energy, and preparing for their moment to shine. These are nature's true survivors, plants that don't just endure winter, they embrace it. Their secret? A natural kind of anti-freeze. As the air grows colder, their cells begin to fill with sugars and proteins that protect them from freezing solid. It's almost as if nature whispers, "You're stronger than you think." And that's what I love most about these plants. They remind us that beauty doesn't disappear in hard times, it simply takes a different form. If you've ever thought winter meant the end of color, think again. With the right soil, good drainage, and a soft blanket of mulch, your garden can stay alive, quietly glowing through the frost. The ground might be frozen, but beneath it lies promise, patience, and quiet magic, waiting for the light to return. So before we meet our first winter bloomers, take a moment to imagine your garden not as asleep, but as dreaming. Because what's coming next will prove that even in the coldest months, nature still finds a way to bloom. Part 2. The Winter Flower. Royalty, nature's cold weather crown. Now, let's step into the heart of the story, where beauty meets resilience. These are the queens of winter, the flowers that rise when everything else fades. Their colors defy the frost, their petals open in silence, and together they turn the dull gray of winter into a living canvas of hope and warmth. 1. Hellebore. The Christmas rose of courage. Meet the hellebore, often called the Christmas rose. A quiet miracle that blooms when everything else has given up. Picture it. Snow still covering the ground, the air sharp and still, and suddenly, soft petals of ivory, pink, or plum unfold like whispers of hope. This flower doesn't wait for spring, it writes its own season. Hardy from Zone 4 to 9, hellebores love partial shade and rich, well-drained soil, much like the forest floor they come from. They don't demand attention, they simply need a little care and patience. In late winter, trim away old weathered leaves so new buds can rise freely. Then add a light layer of compost or mulch to keep their roots warm. Once established, they return year after year, stronger and more radiant each time. Pair them with snowdrops or ferns, and you'll have a scene that feels like a soft dream in the middle of winter. Gardeners often say, when the hellebore blooms, spring is whispering in the snow. It's more than a flower. It's a promise that even in the coldest moments, life never truly fades. 2. Witch Hazel. The Lantern of Winter. Just when you think the garden has gone to sleep, witch hazel wakes it up with fire in its veins. Its twisted petals, golden yellow, burnt orange, even copper red, unfurl in the heart of January, glowing like tiny lanterns against the bare branches. When you walk past on a still morning, the air carries a soft, spicy fragrance, delicate yet bold enough to cut through the frost. Hardy from Zone 3 to 9, witch hazel thrives where others fail. It loves the morning sun and a little afternoon shade, growing best in moist but well-drained soil rich in organic matter. Once it's found its home, it asks for almost nothing, just a gentle prune after flowering to shape its branches. Plant it where you can see it from your window or along a garden path, and you'll be rewarded with color when the world turns gray. In New England, gardeners say, "When witch hazel blooms, winter has met its match." And it's true. This plant doesn't just survive the cold, it lights it up, turning even the bleakest day into something quietly magical. 3. Camellia, the winter queen. When the garden world grows still and silent, camellia steps forward like royalty wrapped in velvet. Its glossy evergreen leaves hold up perfect rose-like blossoms, soft blush pinks, deep reds, or snowy whites that sparkle with morning frost. On a cold day, when sunlight touches its petals, it looks as if the flower itself is glowing from within. Thriving in zones 7 through 9, camellias prefer dappled light, bright mornings and gentle shade by afternoon. They adore slightly acidic, moist soil enriched with organic matter, and they reward consistency. Water deeply before the ground freezes, then cover the base with pine needles or shredded bark to protect those tender roots. Each winter they bloom faithfully from November through March, transforming the quiet garden into a painting of color and grace. Avoid pruning in late summer when buds are forming. Instead, trim lightly after flowering. Pair camellias with ferns or hellebores, and you'll create a soft harmony of texture and tone. Gardeners often say, when the camellia blooms, winter doesn't feel so long. One look, and you'll understand exactly why. Part 3. The Gentle Ground. Charmers, beauty beneath the frost. While the tall shrubs steal the spotlight, the real magic often happens closer to the ground. These are the quiet artists of winter. Small, humble perennials that paint color across frozen soil and remind us that even the smallest blooms can bring the greatest warmth to a cold, gray garden. 4. Snowdrops, the whisper of spring. When everything seems frozen and lifeless, the first sign of hope often comes from a tiny white bell. Snowdrops are the messengers of renewal, brave little blooms that pierce through the last layer of snow just to say, "Hold on, spring is near." Their petals nod gently in the cold wind, pure and graceful, like nature's quiet breath. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, snowdrops thrive where few others dare. They prefer partial shade and moist, well-drained soil, often blooming from late January through early March. Once planted, they naturalize easily, forming soft carpets that return stronger every year with almost no effort from you. After flowering, allow their leaves to fade naturally. That's how the bulbs gather energy for next season's magic. Snowdrops pair beautifully with hellebores or winter aconites, creating a delicate contrast of white and gold that glows even under frost. There's an old English saying, "When the snowdrop bows its head, it's not from weakness, but from grace." And in that quiet grace, your garden finds its heartbeat again. 5. Winter aconite, the sunlight of the snow. When the world outside feels colorless and still, winter aconite arrives like a burst of golden laughter. Tiny cup-shaped blooms open wide against the frost, shining like drops of sunshine scattered across the ground. Their cheerful yellow petals seem to glow from within, warming the heart even when the air bites cold. Hardy in zones 3 through 7, these little wonders thrive in partial sun or dappled shade, especially beneath bare winter trees. They prefer rich, moist soil that drains well, the kind of soft earth you'd find in a woodland meadow. Plant their small tubers shallowly in autumn, and by late January or February, they'll rise through the frost with radiant determination. Once established, Winter aconites spread gently, forming golden carpets that return year after year. Pair them with snowdrops or early crocuses for a natural harmony of white and gold. Gardeners in the Alps often say, when the aconite opens, winter begins to loosen its grip. And truly, these flowers do more than bloom. They remind you that even in the coldest season, warmth always finds its way back home. 6. Cyclamen, the butterfly of winter. At first glance, cyclamen looks too delicate to face the cold, but beneath its heart-shaped leaves lies a quiet strength. When most flowers hide away, cyclamen blooms boldly, lifting its magenta, rose, or white petals high above the soil like tiny butterflies frozen mid-flight. Each one seems to dance gently in the chill, defying the season with grace. Hardy in zones 4 through 8, these beauties love partial to full shade and well-drained soil rich in leaf mold or fine bark. They grow from small tubers that prefer to stay close to the surface. Bury them too deep, and they'll struggle to rise. Once settled, they need little care. Water sparingly through winter, just enough to keep the soil lightly moist and let the plant rest naturally in summer. Cyclamen pairs perfectly with hellebores, ferns, and snowdrops, creating a woodland tapestry of silver-patterned leaves and soft winter color. There's a saying among gardeners, cyclamen teaches patience, the art of blooming when no one else dares. And perhaps that's why it feels so magical, quietly thriving in the coldest, darkest months of the year. 7. Winter heather, the 4-month flame. When nearly everything in the garden fades, winter heather keeps glowing like a quiet ember beneath the snow. From December through April, this hardy evergreen covers the cold ground in waves of pink, lavender, and white, tiny bell-shaped blooms that seem to hum softly against the frost. It's the plant that refuses to let winter feel empty. Hardy in zones 4 through 7, winter heather thrives in full sun and well-drained, slightly acidic soil. If your garden has heavy clay, lighten it up with sand or pine bark. This simple step keeps its roots healthy through wet winters. Once it's settled, heather asks for very little. Just a gentle trim after flowering to keep its shape neat and full. Plant it along borders, rocky slopes, or in pots by your doorway, and you'll have color that lasts long after everything else has fallen asleep. Pair it with dwarf conifers or hellebores for contrast and texture. Gardeners in Scotland often say, "Where heather grows, the heart feels at home." And truly, with this plant in your garden, even the coldest day carries a touch of warmth. Part 4. The Evergreen Showpieces. Winter's living architecture. While smaller blooms paint gentle strokes of color, these evergreen perennials give your winter garden its shape, depth, and spirit. They're the anchors, graceful shrubs that stay green when everything else fades, carrying clusters of blooms that shimmer like jewels against the frost, proving that beauty and structure can stand side by side, even in the cold. 8. Japanese Pieris, the bells of winter grace. If elegance had a season, it would look like the Japanese Pieris, also known as the lily of the valley shrub. This evergreen beauty turns winter into poetry. From late February to early spring, it drapes itself in cascades of delicate bell-shaped flowers, pure white or softly blushed pink, hanging like strings of pearls over glossy green leaves. When sunlight catches them, they sparkle as if dusted with snow. Hardy in zones 5 through 8, Pieris thrives in partial shade, where light filters gently through tall trees or reflects off a north-facing wall. It adores acidic, moist, and well-drained soil, rich with organic matter. Once established, it asks for little. Just mulch each fall with pine needles or leaf mold to keep its roots cool and happy. Japanese Pieris pairs beautifully with camellias and azaleas, creating layers of green and white that feel serene and timeless. Place it near a walkway or entrance where its blooms can greet you each morning. When everything else stands bare, this plant whispers a soft truth. Winter doesn't take beauty away. It simply makes it shine quieter and brighter. 9. Mahonia, the golden flame of the cold. Meet Mahonia, the rugged yet radiant warrior of winter. With spiky holly-like leaves and clusters of bright yellow flowers, it brings life to even the gloomiest corners of the garden. In midwinter, when most plants are silent, Mahonia bursts into bloom, filling the air with a subtle honey-like fragrance. As spring approaches, those flowers transform into deep blue berries, a feast for birds and a touch of wild charm for your garden. Hardy in zones 5 through 9, Mahonia thrives in shade or partial sun, making it perfect for spots where light is limited. It prefers rich, well-drained soil and rewards neglect with grace. Once established, it barely needs attention. Just trim away old stems after flowering to encourage fresh growth. This shrub is as practical as it is beautiful. Use it as a living fence, a windbreak, or a striking backdrop for hellebores and ferns. Together, they create a layered winter haven of gold, green, and deep shadow. Gardeners often call Mahonia the sun that never sets, because even in the darkest months, it burns bright, a symbol of resilience and quiet strength. 10. Pansies and violas, the laughter of winter. If your garden ever feels too quiet, plant pansies and violas. They'll bring it back to life with color and cheer. These small but fearless flowers bloom through frost, through drizzle, even after a light snowfall. Their faces, painted in purples, yellows, blues, and whites, look like tiny smiles scattered across the cold ground, reminding you that joy can exist even in the chill. Hardy in zones 6 through 10, they thrive best in cool, mild winters and love the spotlight of full sun or light shade. Keep their soil rich and moist, but never soggy, and they'll reward you with months of non-stop blooms. A simple pinch of faded flowers every few days keeps new buds coming. A quick act that makes a big difference. Whether in window boxes, garden borders, or clay pots by your doorstep, pansies and violas fill winter with laughter and life. Pair them with dusty miller or ivy for texture and contrast. Gardeners often say, "A winter without pansies is a garden without smiles." And once you see their colors shining through frost, you'll know exactly what they mean. Part 5. The Art of Winter Gardening. Secrets to keep everything alive. Now that you've met the stars of the season, let's step behind the curtain and uncover the quiet techniques that help these beauties thrive. Because a winter garden isn't just about what you plant, it's about how you nurture it when the world turns cold. The secret begins beneath your feet. Good drainage is everything. Cold, soggy soil is the silent killer of perennials. When the temperature drops, excess water freezes, choking the roots. That's why every successful winter gardener starts by loosening the soil, mixing in bark, sand, or compost to keep it light and breathable. Think of it as wrapping your plants in a warm, airy blanket instead of sealing them in a cold, wet coat. Mulching is your garden's winter armor. A thin layer of shredded leaves, pine needles, or bark helps regulate the soil temperature and protects delicate roots from sudden freezes. It also creates a cozy home for earthworms and beneficial microbes that keep your soil alive, even when everything else sleeps. But remember, moderation matters. Too thick, and the roots can't breathe. Too thin, and frost will sneak through. And here's a little trick that experienced gardeners swear by: creating microclimates. Use walls, fences, or even large pots to shelter your more sensitive plants. South-facing walls capture sunlight, holding warmth like nature's heater. For those with balconies or patios, grouping plants close together helps them share heat and moisture, forming a small, self-sustaining ecosystem. Winter gardening isn't about fighting the cold. It's about learning its rhythm. With the right care, your garden doesn't just survive the frost. It glows through it, carrying quiet life where most see only stillness. Part 6. Designing winter beauty, turning cold spaces into living art. A winter garden isn't just about survival, it's about transformation. It's the art of finding warmth in stillness and creating color when nature seems asleep. Design in this season is less about abundance and more about harmony, pairing texture, light, and silence to make something quietly breathtaking. Start by imagining your garden as a painting. Every shrub, every bloom, every frost-covered leaf becomes a brushstroke. Tall evergreens like witch hazel or camellia serve as your anchors, the strong green frame that holds the scene together. Around them, softer layers of hellebores, cyclamen, and winter heather weave movement and color through the cold air. Then, down near the soil, let snowdrops and aconites spill their light like golden stars on snow. Balance is key. Contrast bright blooms with dark foliage and mix shapes the way an artist blends tones. The glossy leaves of pieris make camellia blossoms seem to glow brighter, while the fine needles of heather soften hard winter edges. And don't forget scent. The sweet spice of witch hazel or the light fragrance of mahonia can lift a gray morning into something unforgettable. Even small spaces can shine. A single pot of violas by your door or a cluster of snowdrops under a window can change how winter feels. Add a warm garden light at dusk, and your cold backyard suddenly becomes a place of magic. Proof that even in the quietest months, beauty doesn't sleep. It simply changes its shape, waiting for us to notice. Part 7. The Winter Care Rhythm. Gentle hands, lasting blooms. Caring for a winter garden is less about hard work and more about timing, a rhythm that flows with the season's pace. Each act of care is quiet, almost meditative, like tending a fire that burns low but steady. Early in the season, before the deep freeze sets in, give your plants one final deep watering. This allows moisture to settle deep into the roots, preventing winter dryness when the topsoil hardens. Then, tuck them in with a thin blanket of mulch. Not too heavy, just enough to keep the warmth in and the frost out. By midwinter, your role shifts from gardener to observer. Step outside after a frost, breathe in the crisp air, and look at how your hellebores or heather stand resilient beneath the shimmer of ice. Remove wilted blooms gently, a quick pinch that encourages new life to form even in the chill. And don't forget the containers. Lift them slightly off the ground with small stands or bricks to stop freezing from creeping into their base. As the light begins to lengthen again, late winter becomes a time of renewal. Trim away the old leaves of your hellebores, shape witch hazel branches after their golden show, and scatter a handful of compost around each plant. It's not just about feeding the soil. It's about reminding your garden that spring is coming. When winter blooms, the heart listens. In the stillness of winter, when the world feels hushed and bare, your garden becomes a story of quiet courage. Every hellebore that opens through the frost, every golden spark of aconite, every camellia that dares to bloom against the wind, they all remind us of something deeper. That even in the hardest season, beauty never disappears. It simply learns a new way to shine. And maybe that's what gardening is really about. Not just growing plants, but growing resilience. When you step into your garden on a cold morning and see life pushing through the snow, you're witnessing more than nature. You're witnessing hope. These 10 hardy perennials don't just survive winter. They celebrate it, turning silence into song and stillness into strength. So as you plan your own winter garden, remember, the season doesn't end with frost. It only transforms. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these winter bloomers would you love to try in your garden? Share your thoughts or favorite cold weather flowers in the comments below. And if this video has inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our growing community here at GreenSpace Inspirations, where every season is a chance to grow something beautiful together.